DnD players, what's your most crazy horror story? Here to share some story about my GM to see if I'm too strict or else. Sorry for any mistake, not a mother tongue. Short explanation, me and a group of friends have been playing for at least 8 to 9 years together I think. I've introduced everyone at Dungeons & Dragons where I played as GM for at least 4 to 5, then I stopped because the group they were getting way too difficult to organize and I thought that they were getting bored. I'm a bit of a rules lawyer, meaning that I've always tried to teach to my players and always tried to avoid house rules and such. Still, after many years of play, just some of them were really learned the rules, but generally they were good players. One of them decided to try to play as GM from then until nowadays. He wasn't very good with rules. After years he didn't know how to calculate a DC for spells and stuff like that, and he wasn't really sure about the game, so we tried many other games. Until today we've played with him Dungeons & Dragons, World of Darkness and Mutants and Mastermind. As a rule lawyer myself and basically the only one who want to read the manuals, I'm usually the one that have to teach about the game even when I'm the player, and that's a pretty bad role. Usually some problems were about overpowered NPC, playing World of Darkness as mage and our chief was a mage with 10 in every single arcana, 10 gnosis and 5 in every single skill and attribute, then in a zombie setting encountering random big zombies with 10 in every attribute and instant, or totally ignoring every description from the book, but the main issue started later. We were doing a detective setting when suddenly we met Vampire Batman. The GM is a very big fan of DC character, his brother, another player, read them too. I know some stuff of DC but the other 2 to 3 player barely have any knowledge. Vampire Batman was basically doing stuff that Batman can do, without really any connection to the rules of the game. He was very rich and had the Batmobile, a suit that made him immune to sunlight, could use the hook to appear anywhere and stuff like that. We really didn't want to hang out with Vampire Batman, but GM was very clear with his intention that we should have interacted with him and create the Justice League. That play didn't last for long. The next game was Mutants and Mastermind. I suggested it and I was aware of the risk, but at least this was the right game. He created a setting with many scenarios where a character randomly should have encountered. He said from the start that the scenarios were zombie apocalypse, monster in the woods and DC Comics. We started at PL1 and we had a good time. We did zombie apocalypse and monster in the woods, keeping for the last DC Comics because we're a little afraid. Then we entered the scenarios, PL2, and encountered an enormous amount of DC Comics character, transported 1-to-1, like all the Justice League and friends. Superman was a strong being that could do all the stuff he can do in the comics, fly over light speed? That's easy. Strong enough to easily carry an object that weighed billions of tons? Of course, and just to show it to us. Every member of the league were clearly more stronger, having easily plus 15 as bonus against our plus 2. Then some Ring of the Lantern Corps decide that we're good host for them, and force into us, giving us powers of the Lantern and basically rendering all of our previous powers useless. We couldn't remove the ring in any way, even cutting the finger out wouldn't help. Our character wanted to do else in this location, but we were forced by the Lantern Corps to fight a war with Yellow Lanterns or we would be put in jail. So we started fighting Yellow Lanterns, all with the same powers, which in the end was just using blast every turn but with our little bonus because the GM forgot to give us a boost to those stats. That was the last session. I'm blinded with prejudice? Or it's a bit too much? I've always thought that a GM should create a game good for everyone, but I'm always surprised how he just want to insert DC Comics and these stuff even if no one else want to interact with them. These are just the biggest example. I'm sure that I've made myself many mistakes during my play as DM, but I've always asked for feedback and suggestion, even if for the players everything was always good, even at the end when they barely were answering to say when they were available. Here I always spoke of my problems in the game, maybe even too much, and rarely the GM responded. So important background: there is a magical substance like a drug, which has caused many things to happen, like making the consumer see a demon in the corner of their eye every 6 hours. Hallucinations, and our Minotaur grow an extra set of horns. Also it is canon that all Minotaurs are named Minotaur, then a one-syllable name, and the first letter relates to the clan they belong to. Now into the session. So we enter the big city. None of us have ever actually been to a city, so it's huge. We find a tavern to stay for the night. It has entertainment and we all need a break. We try to teach our goblin rogue, who is basically a child, about dancing. We look at some shops, and find a poison that we can say is lube and potentially kill our bard. We've been trying to get rid of him for many reasons. Then we find some good rocks, that we had to roll a rock check for. This has been a big thing in the campaign. We find a nice booth and our Minotaur arm wrestles to get a discount. He rages and our cleric casted Bless on him. He wins, We get the rock and the orc owner is sad now then our Rouge teleported him and herself to a tavern. He's still raging and Bless is still active. Then Minotaur Joe kicks open the door and yells who wants to fight. His one goal is be in a bar fight which is harder than it should be. He is met by Minotaur Beth, Bill 1, Bill 2, Bob 1, and Bob 2. They see his extra horns, ask about it, and our goblin gives them all this drug called cram. And oh boy was that a mistake, all the Minotaur bees fuse into a giant Minotaur. It rises from a ball of smoke and has 10 arms, 10 legs, 40 horns and a crown, and 5 voices. We created Minotaur large. And you thought that was the end? Nope. The creature chases Joe and Trinket, the Rouge, down the street. The party rejoins and my character and the cleric see this and just think, well. We try to figure out what exactly happened, then we hear the guards coming and try to make a plan. The plan was not decided and the cleric and the Rouge walked away while me the fighter and the barbarian try to defuse the situation. I try to tackle it because +9 to athletics seems like it could be possible. We fail and Minotaur large uses its arms as helicopter blades and flies away. Still not over, then we go to the tavern and try to buy a room for the night, and the barkeep is hiding under the bar and is shocked that we're for the most part casual by what just happened. We get stronger drinks for the party and as the band is playing and everyone has a slight buzz, my character and the cleric share a dance. We then determine that my character is the top because she will tackle enemies as a first instinct. Then the two share some more drinks, which is a large drink with an umbrella-like topper and 2 straws. My character becomes a useless and doesn't notice the guards taking the Rouge away. Some players weren't at this session, and they don't get to know what happened. There will be no recap, we will start with the trial and the testimony will be the recap. First of all, I am not the DM. It is a friend of mine. And we are playing online, due to quarantine. We are 1 DM and 3 players, Warlock Mage, Human Paladin, and Human Scout. The playthrough's name is Swamp Nightmare. We started out in a tavern. Fairly normal. A goblin comes in, says something to our Warlock Mage and dies. We loot him and get a healing cloth. We go out. A dead elf. We lot him. 30 gold. Then our scout says, let's keep some of the coins and throw the rest in the well of fortune. We all agree. So we all kept 9 coins and wanted to throw 3 into the well. Our mage threw 1. Then a golden snake crawled out. He hissed, trying to tell us to wish for something. The mage wished for a renovated tavern. Nothing. I, Paladin, have decided to strike the golden snake with my sword. The snake jumped on the blade and, puff, ate it. I was left with only a handle. We then realized that the snake eats metal and our weapons are ineffective. The scout decided to throw a rock at it. He missed and hit the butcherer's house. The butcherer then went out and started attacking him. We were 1 Latvian lats and he was, like, 20 Latvian lati or so. We realized that we are doomed. Then I got an idea, why don't we just eat the butcherer into the well? Everyone agreed. So we did that. The butcherer fell into the well and pushed the golden snake out. They then both died and the snake dropped approximately 10 kilograms of pure gold shaped like scales, which we then sold to a local jeweler for 70 gold coins per kilogram, while we told him that it is snake treasure and gave him the shap of the gold as a proof. In short, we got attacked by a snake and a butcherer, so we yeeted the butcherer into the well, knocked out the snake and obtained 10 kilograms of snake gold. So first I am posting this mostly to vent. I have never made a post like this and am kind of bad at writing, so expect mistakes. I've been DMing at a local game store using Adventurers League rules for quite a long time. We were just hitting tier 4 with Dungeon of the Mad Mage but took a break for a week to do a module in late February, Crypt of the Death Giants. We had 5 players for this specific mod. The 3 main players Rouge, Eldritch Knight and Barbarian. Barbarian invited Warlock and Bard. They joined late and had no AL experience, so just so we could play we made them high-level characters for them. Warlock had been with us a while and Bard and joined a few weeks prior. Most of the module went pretty great, lots of fun. Entering the final room in the big fight, the Bard had cast Eternalness to be safe. The enemies started with a Drolich, a Dragloth, an Archmage and a Storm Giant zombie, and some Death Giants came out later, Death Knights but Storm Giants. So combat begins and the Bard turns around and casts Mass Polymorph, turning allies into giant apes and enemies into frogs. A few party members turned and the giant zombie turned. The Archmage attempted to banish the Bard due to him being a threat, but the Rouge, Arcane Trickster with wizard levels, countered the spell. Later on the layer action took an attack against the Bard. For the rest of the combat the only things that went at the Bard were 2 single target things and the rest lightning bolts, destructive wave, stuff like that. The finish the fight got the item, and as far as I could tell we all had fun. Jump to the next Saturday, I get a message from Bard accusing me of targeting him and not liking his character. He was also a bit passive-aggressive. I apologized, my mistake, saying I was sorry and it was not intentional at all. And since I thought I was pretty fair in my choices, I didn't give it a second thought. Couple days pass with no response, and he leaves our Facebook chat group without a word. A week passes and Barbarian leaves. I message him and am told that his GF and the Bard were going to be playing their own game on the same day we usually played. Few more weeks and Warlock leaves with one message basically saying she chose the other game over ours. None of the three talked to about it like adults. I knew nothing. Bard and Barbarian went to my friends, Eldritch Knight and Rogue, to talk about it, so I ended up losing 2 friends and party members because of him. Most of the party agreed I didn't do anything wrong. I am kind of a sensitive person and hate losing friends, so it all really hurt me. It didn't help that I've always had a hard time keeping and making friends. Me, Rogue and Eldritch Knight still play weekly if we can, but it's hard for me to balance the adventure for 2 players. The TLDR is, Bard joined our group, accused me of being unfair and targeting him even though most players said I didn't, which costed me friends and caused me quite a bit of pain. Thanks for reading my badly written rant/complaining, D. Hello there. If you have an interesting story, and you want it to be shared, write it in the comments section. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the video, press like and subscribe for more awesome stories.